What's happening, YouTube? It's your man and brother, More Motivation. Today, we'll talk about a few ways to get amazing results on your cut as an athlete. Alright, welcome to the channel. So I got a couple of talking points here. So I'm gonna go one by one, and I have three things to keep in mind when you're cutting as an athlete. Well, the first thing on the list is do not restrict yourself. More isn't always better. When it comes to eating, a lot of times for people, they get caught up in the number on the scale, right? And they want results way too quickly. So it causes them to cut too many calories too soon, to deprive themselves, and to starve themselves. What is gonna happen if you do that? Let's say you are on a cut, and let's say that you cut a lot of calories very quickly. You may find the first 3 to 4 weeks you're cutting weight relatively quickly. Let's say it's more than 2 pounds per week. Eventually, you will plateau. And it gets to the point your body has to store fat because it doesn't trust you for not giving it enough food. So you still want to be in a calorie deficit, but too much is possible. You want to be in enough of a deficit that you're losing at least 1 pound a week. Anything more than that is way too much. So what I typically tell my students is if you're cutting more than 1 pound a week, you're either have a lot of body fat, a lot of water weight, or you're just cutting too many calories too quickly. So a rule of thumb I have is 500 calories at least down per day. If you multiply that by 7 days of the week, it's 3,500, which equals to 1 pound lost. Of course, when you lose weight, all of that weight you lose won't always be just body fat. Just keep that in mind. And the steps that I have after, or the things that I have after, will further explain what things to look at when you're doing a cut, especially as an athlete. And I also want to keep in mind too, when you restrict yourself of many different macronutrients as an athlete, especially too much calories and too much carbs, your performance is going to go down the drain. So you want to think about all those things. So it's not just about cutting weight quickly, but it's about cutting weight effectively, right? So the rule of thumb I have is anything more than a pound per week is too much. And if that's happening for you and you're not cutting a lot of calories in the first place, let's say you're not cutting at least 500 and you're still losing weight quickly, it could be water weight. It could be that you have a lot more body fat, because people with more body fat lose fat easily, and the leaner you get, the harder it becomes. You want to keep all those things in mind. So doing it quickly is not the solution. More isn't always better. Keep that in mind. For something that's sustainable, for better results later on, and to prevent plateaus, you do not want to restrict yourself and cut too many things too soon. Number 2, you want to plan eating around your workouts. So if you're not training that day, it doesn't make sense to eat the same amount of food. If you are training lower body versus upper body, you need to eat a lot more. If you're training lower body, a lot more carbohydrates, for example. So this is where manipulating the macros makes sense. Because to be real, not all muscles need the same amount of energy. It takes a lot more energy for the lower body to recover. So you want to think about how you eat when you're training the biggest muscle groups, as opposed to training just the forearms. You wouldn't eat the same way. So you want to eat around your workouts. And this is a perfect example I can give you. So if you're training legs tomorrow, you can eat more carbohydrates today to help you get through your lower body day. If you know you're gonna have a soccer game and then you have to work out, you're gonna eat more carbohydrates. It doesn't mean that you're gonna eat more calories. There's a difference. So when talking about eating, you got macronutrients, right? So it's your calories, fat, carbs, and protein. So you can manipulate those things. The only thing that always remains the same is the protein, but the carbs and the fats always change. So on days that you're doing more activity, you need more carbohydrates to be able to do it, because the primary source of energy for performance is carbohydrates. So you want to keep that in mind. So you want to plan around your activity and workouts. Number 3, you have to track progress, and you have to track the right progress. People focus on the wrong progress because of social media. They saw their friends doing something online. The whole fitness industry is about weight, but it's not really relative, because weight doesn't really say anything. It doesn't say how much body fat percentage you have. It doesn't say anything about your performance, how you feel, how sustainable it is, what you're doing, if that makes sense. So you want to track things like your body stats. So is your waist shrinking? Is your face shrinking? Is certain body parts shrinking that you want to shrink? Because your arms could be shrinking, your shoulders could be shrinking, your legs could be shrinking, which means you're gonna lose muscle in certain areas. Or if a layer of fat is getting off your body, that's when you know you're burning fat. So a good way to know your body stats is having a tape measure and actually measuring week by week to see what is changing, and also by looking in the mirror to see how your body composition looks. This is the most accurate way to tell if you're losing body fat, because like I said before, if you're losing weight, especially if it's very quickly, it could be water weight, it could be muscle, and those are things you don't want to lose, because the more muscle you have, the better your metabolism is, the more you're burning at rest when you have more muscle. So the best thing for you is having muscle in order to cater to your performance for your sport, in order to keep your metabolism high, and to also be less likely to gain fat. So you want to track the right amount of progress. Losing weight is not the only metric to knowing what's going on. You have to look in many different ways, and also how you feel, how your performance is in your sport and your workouts. Those are things that show you progress more so than just a number moving on the scale. So those are 3 things to keep in mind when cutting, especially as an athlete. You see many mistakes done all the time, and I want you to avoid it. It's something that you can avoid for sure. But yes, so these things, if you apply it, your performance will skyrocket, you cut properly, and you always keep your performance, and you won't be doing something that isn't sustainable. So thank you so much for watching this video. It's more motivation. Like always, get better every day, optimize yourself. I'll see you next video.